little further, friends. Therefore, what you see on your screen today is a very simplistic formulation of that all these that you need to do. Not that all these that you need to do in one particular unit or one particular course, but then these you need to consider for your entire certificate, diploma, or degree program, that how you would like to engage with all these that are listed over here. And you need to appreciate. Appreciate means you need to understand the nuances of these, and therefore you would be in a position to use them. Because pedagogy, after all, using or appreciating how your discipline or subject is going to be transacted. Transaction is not only one way. Transaction is not only two-way. In a network learning, transaction is in multi-way. So therefore, in a network-based learning, we are getting into more complex situations than what is happening within the classroom, because classroom is two sides only. But in network learning, there are multiple sides, and therefore we need to be very careful about that. So friends, what I'm simply saying is, with this PowerPoint, is very simple, that once you have done your curriculum mapping, define your graduate attributes and learning outcomes. I must remind you here, the University Grants Commission has come out with 2 regulations, and of late, the academic banking of credits a few days back, a regulation about graduate attributes and a regulation about learning outcomes. These detailed 2 documents you must download from UGC site and study in detail. And there are examples given from different disciplines of undergraduate and postgraduate programs, which will be extremely helpful. And you could appreciate what I'm saying. So your curriculum mapping that you have done, I will show you examples. Curriculum mapping that you have done, the graduate attributes, learning outcomes that you have defined, and you have designed a varieties of learning activities for each learning outcome. And finally, your formative and summative evaluation, which is called an evaluation rubric. These 4 things we need as an evidence insofar as your curriculum design is concerned, especially in this context of online and blended learning, friends. Let me go a little further. When you talk about learning outcomes, generally, there are different other formulations available. You are absolutely free to bring in any formulation to help you to define your learning outcome. But generally, people have been talking about the Bloom's taxonomy of cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain to interpret or to derive or to jot down or write down your learning outcomes. The learning outcomes in the cognitive domain starts with a simple remembering of recalling of facts, to understanding, to use of information for application, to analyze contexts, to evaluate a particular situation, and finally to be creative or innovative in your understanding. So therefore, friends, if 3 kinds of learners generally people talk about, all put together, a surface learner who would stop at understanding level, a deep learner will go up to creativity level. Deep learner is not bothered about remembering, recalling, reproducing. No, they're much more wider. And most of us are into application and analysis, which are called strategic learners, without any creative ability or innovative ability. So therefore, we need to go beyond surface learning to much more strategic and little possible to go to deep learning. That we are not simply saying the entire diploma or degree program is about deep learning. No, sometimes you have to provide information that is at the surface level. Most of the times you have to get into application, which is more strategy. And beyond that, if any situation is given to the students in the community, in the workplace, in the family, in anywhere, in the business, that they, in agriculture, whatever, they would like to solve it more creatively. That's called a deeper learning. So deeper learning is actual transfer of their learning to diversified context in the society and community, not only in the classroom or the groups of students called community of practice. I simply said, this is a certificate in community development, which I developed for the Commonwealth of Learning, for the lifelong learning workers or the community workers in the community. This is a certificate in community development. This program, this is a concept map of the certificate in community development. This certificate is divided into a few broader thematic area. These thematic areas have been further subdivided into, you could find the coloring system, the dotted shows and weaker linkage, and the straight line shows a stronger linkage, and the colored ones will be much more about application side in the community, and so on and so forth. What this concept mapping is giving us, this is how a content is designed, by the way, rather than jotting down or comparing a few curriculum that is available or courses of study and you start developing that. That is not acceptable, friends. You could consult that, but that nobody is saying no. But then your process should be this way. What it is telling us, it is telling us what all is involved for a community worker to do a certificate. Number two, that what could be more thematic areas which we could call as courses, and less thematic areas or connected areas when we could call them as modules, and still further subdivided ones we could call them as units or lessons or chapters or whatever you would like to call them. Second, it is telling us that what could be your learning outcome after designing this. Three, it is telling you, of course, it is assuming that what graduate attribute, that pre-learning experiences that your learners who will be joining in, they have. Based on that, of course, you will be developing your resources later on. It is also telling you what kind of activities that you would like to design. It is also telling you, given all these, how you would like to assess your students. So friends, to conclude this, let me submit what I said. I said 4 things in my previous PowerPoint. If this is your concept mapping, what could be your program learning outcome? This is precisely, I borrowed from the Commonwealth of Learning website. Of course, this is my work. That program learning outcomes of the entire program is based on these. These, for each learning outcome, you have to decide your content, your teaching learning strategy, and activities that you would like to design. And finally, what kind of formative and summative assessment you would like to do. It's very simple. We as an evidence would like to know this, how you have done it, and so that I would do it in the same way, or I might do it differently. I would simply like to communicate, because teaching, a good teaching learning is all about a collegial decision-making or a collegial discourse. It is not a personalized activity, by the way, friends, to be very precise and to be very sure. You could argue the case very differently, but if you go to the court of law, they would simply say that teaching learning is in public domain, and therefore we need to engage in discourse and discussion, and therefore you would like to show what exactly you are doing so that others learn from you. You become a mentor. This is an example of a program learning outcome. I pick up one course from that, that is environmental education. Environmental education and environmental science will teach you very differently. But this environmental education is about community and community workers. Therefore, we had to derive content from our concept mapping. We discussed about community health and hygiene, the ecosystem, sustainable development, and disaster management, the way it is happening in the community. And all these are courses, modules. These modules have got into what is called units, for instance. And if I go a little beyond, I would simply say, what would be the learning outcomes? There are 4 learning outcomes that we jotted down for the course on environmental education. These 4 learning outcomes are in front of you, and the PowerPoint will be made available to you to examine a little later. If I pick up one unit from there, the unit is managerial skills. This managerial skill is not what an MBA is going to study, by the way. This managerial skill is about community workers. Therefore, we jotted down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 learning outcomes insofar as that unit is concerned, and 5 sections have been devoted in that unit to translate these learning outcomes into content and activities. And there are formative assessment within, which you would call as self-assessment activities, and there are assignments later on. Now let us get into content design a little bit. 1 or 2 PowerPoints. I have discussed concept map. You can derive your content structure from there and learning outcomes. There can be hyperlinks to open resources if possible, or you would like to develop your own self-learning materials in print, audio, video, graphics, animation, data. All these possibilities are there that you would like to develop yourself or borrow from somewhere or take up from or adapt an open education resource. and you need to design activities. When we are discussing about open education resources, a little bit of OER pedagogy, because the open education resources that are available to you, they are almost of 5 kinds that you can handle them or you can use them in your course of study. Those which talk about CCBY that you can only retain, sometimes you can reuse. In some cases, you are permitted to revise it and adapt yourself. In some cases, you are allowed to remix that with your course of study, and they can also allow you to redistribute. In other words, an open OER pedagogy would simply mean that it permits you to do an open sharing, provided your institution has adopted an OER policy. Unless you have adopted an OER policy committed to Creative Commons, you would not be in a position to do that. For example, in our eGyan course, all the resources, all the courses and programs and modules, audio and video that are available at IGNOU, they are available in the public domain for anybody to study or whatever, use that. But we have not declared that as open education resources legally. So therefore, that of course possibility is there, but then open repository, open textbooks are also available. They are partially open education resources, open content, open teaching, materials available in networks and public discourse, including YouTube and newspapers and websites and professional networks, and all these possibilities are with you. Friends, what I'm simply concluding this part by simply saying that we need to do an integration. It's not that simple. I have examples, but I don't have time to show you, but I could show. In our NAC presentation, I derived an example from physics, Newton's law, an excellent example of how they designed, did a concept map, drew learning outcomes, designed content, designed activities, self-assessment questions, linked to assignments, linked to activities, linked to formative and summative assessment, and so on and so on. Excellent example, but I have that, but I do not have time to show you because that will take more time to explain. So therefore, friends, what I'm simply saying here is, if this is your learning outcome 1, you need to show what activities you need to design and therefore jot down for that learning outcome and what would be your assessment strategy. In between, you are giving resources to study that, including the technology-enabled learning that you are bringing in. I would simply like to submit here one clarification that your technology and technology-enabled learning is coming in. It is not deciding for you your pedagogy, how you would like to proceed. I hope you are appreciating what I'm saying. In online learning, let me tell you, online learning is a platform. It is a learning management system like your classroom. And therefore, your platform should not dictate you. I repeat, your platform should not dictate you what and how you are going to teach that or how you are going to facilitate your students' learning. Friends, I'm communicating in one sentence what is a pedagogy of online learning. So learning outcome 2, activity 2, and assessment 2, and so on and so forth. If you would like to do that, it will be excellent. Now a little bit about interaction, and I will show you some examples. Interaction design is very important. I leave with you 2 formulations. The best formulation in the world so far, as much as I understand, is Professor Terry Anderson and D. Randy Garrison and other colleagues who have given us the references over here. You can Google them and you can download free of cost their publications. They gave a formulation called that we need to design when we are getting into online learning, culture and learning, gender and learning, language and learning, and many other race, caste in our case, and so on and so forth. They have a lot more role to play. Besides, we also, if we have to get into deeper learning, then certainly we need to give more consideration to interaction, the design of that, and the facilitation of that. And therefore, both collaborative learning synchronous, which is going on right now because we are at the same point of time, and more so, which is more qualitative, is asynchronous learning that you teach, the students take time to learn, and that's possible in the discussion forum itself in the learning management system, including Moodle, for instance. So therefore, what these colleagues, they talked about, they said, you need to design your cognitive presence, your teaching presence, and your social presence. You need to design and show to the students. Friends, it is not a legal issue alone, it is a pedagogic issue for me, that we as teachers, we need to show our design to our students so that the students are more enlightened and more directed. They get a direction how they would like to proceed. And therefore, your design also enhances the quality of your students' learning. And therefore, in very, very, very light terms, I would say that your student handbook, for instance, is nothing but your design. So your student handbook is also facilitating students' learning, that is providing them direction. In online learning, you don't have a handbook. Of course, you can have a handbook in PDF form or whatever form, but you need to get in beyond the handbook to design of your cognitive, teaching, and social presence. You please study a little more about that. This is the best theoretical discourse that I could see. In my Fulbright, what I devoted is that I devoted my time to develop a strategy for congruence between your offline identity and your online. Meaning thereby that all the time you are offline, but right now we are into online. What is the distinction between your offline and online? And when you finish your online class, when you go back offline, what happens? What relationship of learning exists and how to enrich the quality of that learning. This is my formulation within this. This is also equally published in 2003 in a book in London, my Fulbright work. So therefore, there are many other formulations, I would say. When you Google the pedagogic design for online learning, you get hundreds of papers, hundreds of formulations, but you select, I'm just giving you some selective ones, which I thought are useful. So friends, you as a teacher, you are everywhere. Don't think that in online learning, you are nowhere. You are everywhere, by the way. Besides your students, it is you. So therefore, your instructional design, I'm pretty sure there is a session on instructional design, and your direct instruction, which is very important. This direct instruction, this is what the XMOOCs are doing, but which are also equally important. But what is most important is the third variable over here, the facilitation of the discourse. You read a little more about these, and these three aspects, I would simply say, the common minimum three aspects that you need to design insofar as your interaction and engagement in online teaching learning is concerned. So friends, therefore, to enhance your presence as a teacher, you need to design interaction, design for self-regulation, that facilitating students to use their own ability to handle their own learning. This is what is called a scaffolding. And if you put the word scaffolding in Google, you will find a lot more explanations and activities and explanations that how scaffolding is possible, and a lot more strategies you would like to get. So don't ask me these questions, how this will be done. You will get plenty of literature study. The only point is that you must study. You are not studying, by the way, you must study. And therefore, a lot more study gets into your pedagogy, and therefore your design of your course and program, and therefore your teaching and learning, and more so online learning, because online learning is 24/7. It's not like a classroom, and therefore all the time you are alert. And therefore, finally, besides enhancing motivation, you need to design for collaborative and cooperative learning online. All these are available. Friends, a little bit about portfolio and case studies. I'm told that the management law kinds of programs, they teach by cases. Because after all, law is a case-based learning. Management is also a case-based learning because they call it case studies. They could be hypothetical cases, they could be real cases. To extend that a little more, we are talking about portfolio. For instance, my son, when he went to study an MSc Public Policy in the University of London, they were Delhi University students. They never heard about portfolio, for instance. But when it landed up in an international course over there, The many countries which are using portfolios, they were much ahead of them. But very quickly they had to learn because there were less lecturing by the professor in the classroom. There were more self-learning with a lot of resources and building your own portfolio. What the professor would see is your portfolio, both formative as well as summative portfolio. So friends, you Google portfolio, you would see how portfolios are designed, an online portfolio also. And if possible, you get into free of cost. Our my colleague, Dr. Maithili, when she'll be presenting an LMS Moodle, or she's presenting a designing of online course, you ask her to share her e-portfolio module with you so that you come to know that how practical an e-portfolio has been designed, because we use that in our Moodle postgraduate diploma, which I would show you as an example. Your interaction very much in the discussion forum. Don't think that there are so many varieties of possibilities that your discussion forum is enough for you in an online learning. But what is important is how you would like to organize your discussion. Thus, the quality of discussion is very important, not the provision of discussion forum by itself. Second Life, which I have already discussed with an avatar software. Emailing and especially asynchronous interaction is more qualitative than synchronous. That is what is going on right now through the Zoom presentation. And we also used a very interesting platform, free of cost, is called Google Groups, which is very important insofar as informal, but accessible, because we evaluated that, we graded that interaction in Google Group is concerned. So friends, there are 4 possibilities. This is borrowed from a SAMCA, Commonwealth Educational Media Center. I understand Professor Madhuparar is coming to make a presentation on instructional design. You get into their booklet, you ask her to provide this booklet free of cost book to you, and you study about synchronous, asynchronous, self-paced and group-paced, and those examples are available how you would like to design. Friends, 1 or 2 sentences about reflective learning. That if your teaching and learning is not leading to students' reflection, then certainly there is some limitation in the quality of learning by itself. Because once they become reflective, they would like to apply that in context and become more creative and problem solving with critical inquiry, critical thinking being developed. That critical thinking is very important. This is what is called, encouraged in the National Education Policy, this is what is called a 21st century skills. 21st century skills is not only about happiness skills. Of course, happiness is very important, but then it is about social and life skills to deal with varieties of difficult problem-based context in life. That is what is not taught in the schools, colleges, and universities. That's what needs to be done. Insofar as online learning is concerned, or technology-enabled learning is concerned, friends, your blogging and your wiki and blog are 2 powerful tools, free of cost, which we used in our, myself and Dr. Maithili, we used these to blog, which was compulsory for them for a personal reflection, and wiki for a collaborative work in the community or group reflection in the Moodle platform. And I will show you, of course, I will not show you Moodle LMS, but then I will show you how we did it. Now, friends, given all these, a few sentences about how the learner should be supported: technology support, metacognitive support, counseling, library resources. These are very important. Let me get into a case study and show you how we did it. This has been discontinued, but this got the best award nationally through an ICT competition. Postgraduate diploma in e-learning. This A is there. I'm very sorry. This A should not be there. Postgraduate diploma in e-learning. This is an admission-based 2013 that I'm showing you as an example, that we designed pedagogy and technology for this program very simple within the Moodle platform. When the Moodle platform was not that versatile, Moodle platform today is very versatile. I'm told Moodle 2.0 even beyond that has become more versatile. And my colleagues in the Center for Online Education will talk about this more. And there is a Moodle presentation by Dr. Jitendra Pandey in the program, as I see. So therefore, you could relate to what I'm presenting here. What is this program? This program is to learn about online learning through online learning. This is about that. We had students from Microsoft, from Adobe, from schools, college, universities, government departments, private companies joining in for this program. Though there was a limited number, I will show that how we handle these and all the principles that I discussed, how in what way we actually applied those. What we did, this is the design of our program. We brought in assigned of open education resources from the same group, Professor Terry Anderson, who has given the best online theory in the world that I showed you, his PowerPoint or his framework. We requested Terry to borrow or to give us free of cost his entire resources that we can use in open education resources, which he did, and therefore we are grateful to him. So we used open education resources and divided this with a concept mapping, divided this into weekly programs for the whole year. This was a weekly study, sometimes fortnightly, but largely weekly study for the entire year. We designed online activities, collaborative discussion forum, assignments on the Moodle LMS. We designed interaction. Besides Moodle LMS, we used extensively the Google Groups. And we said that your interaction in the Google Groups, we would like to evaluate and assess that will be part of the scoring system. There was a weekly and sometimes fortnightly lecturing online. We called it a virtual class. And of course, we paid for that. We used the Adobe Connect platform to organize the virtual class. And today, a lot more free software, open source software are available. We said, since you will be learning the nuances of open source tools as well as platforms, we need to have compulsorily a 1 week face-to-face interaction in the laboratory of IGNOU. Everybody should come. And of course, everybody came. Almost 1 or 2 in the batch, except them, everybody came. What they have to learn? They have to learn about media, technology, software, open education resources, and open technologies, including audio, video, etc., which I think Dr. Maithili would like to present. And after that, there was regular presentation online. There was examination through projects. There was an e-portfolio, and there were presentations from time to time to evaluate them. Midterm, as well as semester end presentation and the year-end presentation. What was the final output? The final output is that they will develop an online module in agriculture, in rural development, in railways, in technology, in Adobe, in school, college, or university, through the Moodle platform, administer that, run that, evaluate that, and submit the report. I don't think there can be a better hands-on experiment than what we did in this program, because they have to do themselves what they are learning for the whole year. So almost after the first semester, they start working on the project. So project discussion is part of the weekly program that we organize. It's a very simple design, pedagogic design, because teaching learning is a simple business. I think we make it more complex. Once we understand the pedagogy of it, it becomes very simple for us to do. Otherwise, it becomes mechanical. A few examples of that. What we did, I will show you access to technology, media integration, how learning was more active, how learning was more interactive, and how students were always engaged in practice. And therefore, we thought that the quality of student learning experience was much higher than what would have been possible if we would not have done these, actually. This is how the learning was made active. Through our virtual class, through resources, weekly resources given to them. It was a very structured program, strict program. If somebody will miss out, we give a second chance, but otherwise one has to come back later for the next year. This is a whiteboard presentation, or you call it a smart board presentation, Dr. Maithili presenting. So active OER, video and open source software, and virtual class, very simple, but we designed this very carefully. Design is very important, friends. Once you appreciate pedagogy of it, your technology will help you. अगर आप pedagogy समझते हैं तो आपको technology पूरा साथ देगा. अगर आप pedagogy नहीं समझते हैं, technology आपका दिमाग खराब कर देगा. आप technology के पीछे चले जाएंगे, हवा के पीछे चले जाएंगे. So if you have to handle technology, you have to understand pedagogy टेक्नोलॉजी अपने आप साथ आ जाएगा. जो टेक्नोलॉजी दूसरे के लिए भाग जाता है वो आपके साथ आएगा, provided you understand pedagogy and how to handle it. You are the teacher, you are the professor, you need to handle it, nobody else for you. How to make it interactive? There were interactive presentations because in Adobe Connect, if you know, there are 4 possibilities. You make a presentation, you can also upload, students can also upload and download simultaneously, and there is a chart system that as a messaging system that you write, students respond, and that all these 4, at least 2 or 3 things go on simultaneously when you are making a presentation of 1.5 hour class, for instance, and the chart also going on simultaneously. Also interactive in the asynchronous, because your discussion forum is very important, friends. I repeat, your discussion forum, because I remember, because our colleague, Professor Anu Aneja, and her colleagues are there, are retired. I was very much involved in the feminist studies, or they call it Gender and Development Studies Master's Program at IGNO. And they developed a parallel website for an asynchronous interaction, and which did wonders. Even that was before COVID time. And in COVID time, I'm pretty sure that would have worked much more. And I understand the IGNO online initiatives that was presented would have talked about the student interaction and learner support at the time of COVID that IGNO provided, and which was excellent, I would say. And that should become a mainstream. That's my submission. That is beyond what a SWAM system does. And if that could be combined with the Moodle system, heads off, you need a simple design. You don't need a complex design, by the way. Your design should be simple. Teaching learning should be simple. And technology should be simple, and quality of student learning will be very high, by the way. Student learning, how engagement took place. This was the student data that are available to you, and you can engage with each student, and you can open up each student's data to the other students, provided they agree to that. We always discussed about the blog, that they would develop their blog as well as wiki. So blog and wiki were combined together for individual reflection and collective reflection. What is a blog, by the way? The blog that the individual student would like to reflect and express in the blog. The others will react to that. So that is an individual reflection goes on. In a wiki, in small groups, they will work collaboratively and they will interact. And the other groups could also contribute to that, which is excellent. If this can be structured properly, this will work wonders, I must say. We don't need high-fine technology which these vendors are selling you. Don't go by the vendors. And they say the smart board and so on and so forth, we would like to transform your technology and enable learning. Don't go by them. Don't listen to them. The vendors are marketeers, by the way. I have dealt with in the inter-university consortium almost all vendors in the country, so I know them very well. But they are very well-established platforms. I'm not saying that your Khan Academy is the biggest academy today internationally insofar as online resources are concerned. Your edX, Coursera are excellent platforms, by the way. I will complete within the next 5 to 7 minutes, friends. So what was our assessment strategy? Our assessment strategy was computer marked assignment given each fortnight, tutor marked assignment once in a month, discussion forum every week, a topic, interaction in the community of practice, including Google Groups, face-to-face workshop. They would learn audio, video, blog, wiki, and all these will be evaluated. The face-to-face workshop will be evaluated. They will make online presentations from time to time. There's online individual and group projects, as I discussed, e-portfolio, and the final outcome, of course, is their model course, which they will design, develop, run it, and then evaluate it and submit the project and showcase how did they do. And from our Moodle platform, we provide a corner to the student free of cost to design, develop, and do that. Once they finish that, they can transfer this, their property, as much as it is IGNO's property, they can transfer there to their platform, and we will close that platform, or we will keep that platform as a sample to show to others. That's what as an open source is all about. So, and some of these graduates of this program, they have developed, they have created their, what you call startups, and some have become very powerful startups, earning a lot of money and doing a lot of work, by the way. But unfortunately, this got stopped in 2013 because of UGC regulation. And now we are not able to revive this because the regulation says, a very funny regulation, by the way, that simply says that unless it is face-to-face, you can't start in distance. Unless it is in distance, you can't do online. I mean, this is extremely funny, I must say. But that regulation must change. I have no hesitation to say that. So therefore, I hope that gradually this changes. This is their presentation. The students are presenting, myself and Dr. Maithili, we are observing and marking and giving feedback. And there is an examination system. Professor Uma Kanjilal, now Pro Vice Chancellor, is taking examination of one of the students as a sample that they are showcasing and presenting their Moodle platform, how they did it and showing their platform. And it's not surprising that we got the Best National Award from the Honorable President of India as the best ICT innovation in pedagogy or technology-enabled learning. So friends, to conclude within a minute or two, what I simply said, all my presentation, that I'm relating that there was a direct interaction through virtual class, presentation, interaction, guidance for OER. This you could say as an instructivist or behaviorist, which is basically a SWOM model, for instance. I'm just trying to relate to, not exact relationship actually. There is a learner-learner interaction that was monitoring through Google Groups as well as in discussion forum. That was a constructivist approach, which we followed. It depends on how do you do it, not what do you do. I repeat, it depends on how do you do it. And finally, of course, what do you do or in what way or with what consequence you do it. There were authentic tasks on the Moodle project, which was basically a constructivist approach, individualized. There's nothing like a good project that they have to do their own individual project. The learning nuances were dealt with by the technology experts from the Inter-University Consortium, now called Center for Online Education. There was a reflection on practice in the discussion forum. And I would say that this is beyond constructivist to be very creative. And therefore, finally, there was a self-regulation possible because each student was developing by oneself through what is called a portfolio that they develop. In this case, we would call it an e-portfolio. We use the Mara platform and so on and so forth, which I would say as a creative. And finally, online 24/7 support was provided. To conclude, therefore, I would simply say, friends, that as an online teacher, your portfolio would include all the variables that I have listed over here. You are a designer, you are a technologist, you are a supporter, facilitator, advisor, co-learner, you are a content expert, you are a researcher, you are an instructor, you are an assessor, you are a mentor, and finally, if possible, that you are an LMS administrator or you are an LMS manager. All these things you can do by yourself alone. So therefore, if you are teaching a course in SWOM, you are doing it alone. Of course, we had 1:50 as students, but I think the SWOM platform is 1:100 or 1:500 like that, and it was very difficult actually to handle so many students. They should reconsider. Finally, that about your roles insofar as technology, pedagogy, content knowledge is concerned, or how to use technology for the pedagogy that you have selected for the discipline that you will be teaching or the subject that you will be teaching. There are some professional competencies, pedagogic competencies, social competencies insofar as online learning is concerned. I talked about gender, language, kinds of things that you have to deal online, culture more specifically, because culture and learning is very important. Evaluation, you are an administrator, technological skills, and counseling and mentoring skills. So therefore, friends, thank you very much. If you have any questions I would like to address, I've tried to give very brief foundation to the pedagogy of online or blended teaching and learning in this brief presentation. I'm very sorry for this technological hitch that I had, but I hope it has worked all through. I shifted to a different network and it worked very well. Thank you very much.